In hospice care, in those final days of life, just being there, well, it's everything. So today, we're going to break down a really important measure called HVDLD, and I want you to think of it as more than just some number on a report. Really, it's our promise, a structured way to make sure we show up for patients and families when they need us the most.
And this quote, this just says it all, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of the matter. Because years from now, in those quiet moments, what families are going to remember is how they felt. Did they feel supported? Did they feel guided through one of the hardest times of their lives? That's the real goal here. And that's the why behind this whole system we're about to walk through.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll dig into why this measure is so much more than just a statistic. Then, we'll get into the clinical side of things, how to recognize when a patient is declining. After that, we'll walk through a clear 5-step workflow to make sure our care is reliable. And finally, we'll talk about teamwork and some of the common tripwires to avoid.
So let's start with that big picture. It's so easy to look at something like HVLDL and just see another quality score we have to track. But what we're really talking about is a shift in mindset. We're looking at this as a system that helps us deliver on a human promise to be there consistently and compassionately when it truly counts.
So, what is HVLDL exactly? Let's get specific. It stands for Hospice Visits in the Last Days of Life, and the definition is pretty straightforward. It means an in-person, face-to-face visit by either an RN or a medical social worker on at least 2 of the patient's final 3 days on this earth.
Now, here is a super critical detail. You have to understand this. HSVDL is what we call a claims-based measure. That means for us to get credit for the amazing care we're giving, 2 things have to happen perfectly. 1, the visit has to actually take place. Obvious, right? But 2, that visit has to be documented and captured correctly in our system. If either one of those things doesn't happen, as far as the data is concerned, the visit never happened at all.
So, that brings us to the next really crucial skill, recognizing patient decline. Because none of this matters if we can't see the signs. It's all about identifying those signals that tell us, hey, this patient and their family, they need more from us, and they need it right now.
The term we use for this phase is transitioning or actively declining. It just means a patient is showing us those signs that they're getting closer to the end of life. And for us, that's the trigger. That's our cue to immediately ramp up support both clinically and emotionally. So what does that actually look like? Well, here are some of the classic triggers. You might see big functional changes, like a patient suddenly becoming bedbound or needing total help with things like toileting. Or you'll see intake decline. They're down to just sips of water, or they're sleeping almost the entire day. It's usually not just one thing, it's the whole picture.
Other triggers are more about symptoms getting worse. Is their pain level going up? Are they more anxious or short of breath? Is the family calling a lot for those as-needed or PRN meds? Any kind of rapid change or instability over just a day or 2 is a huge red flag that tells us their needs have changed, and our plan needs to change with them.
And this point right here, this is so important. Please don't forget it. Caregiver distress is a clinical indicator. When that spouse or child on the other end of the phone sounds panicked, exhausted, or just says, I don't know if I can do this, that is our signal. That is often the very best predictor that that family needs more hands-on, in-person support from us immediately. We have to listen to that.
Okay, so we've identified that a patient is transitioning. Now what? Well, that's where our 5-step workflow comes in. This is a process that's designed to make our response the same every single time, consistent, timely, and reliable.
Here are the 5 steps in a nutshell. It all starts the moment we identify the decline, with a trigger in the system. That kicks off a 72-hour plan. From there, it's all about action, placing orders, getting the social worker involved, and finally, making sure it's all documented perfectly. Let's break each one down.
Step 1 is the linchpin. It's what gets the whole ball rolling. And the rule is simple and non-negotiable. The same day you identify that decline, you go into the EMR and you enter the transitioning patient trigger. Not tomorrow, not at the end of your week, the very same day. That urgency is what makes the whole system work.
And the note you put in for that trigger has to be good. It needs to be clear, specific, and paint a picture. This example here is perfect. It's not vague, it's factual. Intake to SIPS, sleeping 20+ hours. It gives the rest of the team a crystal clear understanding of what's happening.
So, the trigger is in. Now, a new clock starts ticking for step 2. Within 24 hours, we have to create a 72-hour plan.
This is where we proactively schedule out those needed RN and social work visits. And this is so important. That plan has to cover weekends and holidays. A family's crisis doesn't take the weekend off, and neither can our plan.
Now, steps 3 and 4 show you the teamwork in action. They often happen at the same time. So if the nurse is at the bedside and sees that new meds are needed, those orders get placed right then and there before they even leave the house. And at the same time, the medical social worker is jumping in, making contact that same day or the next to provide that crucial emotional support. And that brings us to the final step. Step 5, which brings this whole thing full circle. We have to document and capture everything accurately. Remember what we said at the beginning? It's a claims-based measure. All of that incredible, compassionate care we provide is basically invisible if it's not documented correctly and on time. This final step is what makes our care count.
All right, in our last section here, let's talk about the glue that holds all this together. Teamwork, and some of the common pitfalls to watch out for. Because, a great process is only as strong as the team that's running it.
And we can't talk about teamwork without giving a huge shout out to our schedulers and operations folks. Honestly, they are the logistical backbone here. They're the ones who make sure these transitioning patients are the #1 priority, who build out those weekend plans, and who sound the alarm early if there's a staffing problem. They turn the plan into a reality.
So, where do things usually go wrong? Well, these are the usual suspects. Recognizing the decline too late is a big one. Not getting that weekend plan locked in on a Thursday or Friday. The team not using the trigger consistently. Or the visit happens, but the paperwork is wrong. Each one of these is a hole in the safety net, and every single one is preventable.
So when you boil it all down, all these steps and workflows, they're all in service of one simple goal: to have a reliable system. A system that's built on a foundation of consistent presence, unwavering support for the family, and just plain clear communication. And that really leaves us with one final thought. We've talked a lot about systems and processes today, but they're not just for us. When a system like this one works, when it's reliable, a family feels held, they feel supported. So the real question to ask ourselves is this: when the system breaks down, who feels that impact the most?